So, today we got bad news. Inflation came in hot, scaring everybody. The markets are down. Everybody's like, no more rate hikes. Well, it's not quite what it looks like. All of this inflation is driven by the higher oil and energy prices because of Iran war, which means it could reverse very quickly. And as is stated here, John Briggs, head of U.S. rate strategy at Natixis North America, very prestigious, says a softer month-on-month core inflation reading may actually indicate the peak that's passed. And it's all war-driven inflation because inflation was way down before the war. Trump's policies are working. He adds this could support a more favorable inflation outlook ahead, but warns the trend depends on oil prices remaining stable and not reigniting inflationary pressure. Well, based on the oil getting out through the pipelines, it will stay stable from here on out. We're not going to see those monster spikes anymore. Unless, say, Trump bombs Iran, we'll see a temporary spike for a couple days, but that's it. The big spike everybody's waiting for, it's not going to happen. Just telling you. So the inflation numbers, they suck. I'm not pretending higher prices don't suck. By the way, me and Kevin Warsh, imagine that. Kevin Warsh, the head of the Fed, the guy running our monetary policy from the central bank, he agrees with me on this. So you tell me who's smarter. The guys who say higher prices is inflation, or Kevin Warsh, the man who's actually the head of the Fed now, who says, no, there's a difference between price movement and inflation. Thank you very much, Kevin Warsh. I appreciate you being on my side and your attention to this matter. Now, a good reminder that the pain people are feeling right now is still because of COVID. It has nothing to do with Trump's policies, has, in fact, zero to do with Trump's policies. It's all because of COVID and because of the massive spending that Joe Biden did during his term. Now, people are going to say, well, Trump spent a lot during COVID too. And you're absolutely right. But guess what? Trump still spent up to the limit of where we wouldn't see massive inflation. And how do we know that? Because Trump had already spent that money and a year later, inflation hadn't taken off. But then Biden came in, and not only did he give us each $1,400 checks, he also sent hundreds of billions of dollars to the states, passing a multi-trillion-dollar package to bail out blue states so they could stay locked down. And yes, after that, prices skyrocketed very quickly, I might add. And so now, if your income has not risen by at least 30% since COVID, you're poor. So that's why people are feeling it. Is there any single metric that shows things are worse today than they were since Trump got in? Not one. But what there is the fact people had hope with Trump, and a year and 4 months later, they're still struggling. And because they're still struggling, they're saying, it feels worse now. I feel worse than last year. That's because of discouragement. It's not because of data. The vast majority of people are actually doing slightly better since last year, thanks to less taxes, less regulations, and over 3% wage growth. However, the feeling is still there. I haven't caught up. I thought I would. And that's a legitimate feeling. But as he says, using the government's data, the real number is actually probably 40%. So yeah, guys, we got screwed by COVID. They tried to destroy our economy and they almost succeeded. Thankfully, what Trump's putting into effect now is going to change everything. Why? Because Trump is all his crazy stuff he's pulling off. Lower regulations, lower taxes, tariffs, etc. All of this, even having government involved in some defense kind of measures with chips, manufacturing, stuff that he can rightfully do under national defense that people are calling socialism, and is actually bringing us a lot more money, like with what he did with Intel, where they increased the company 3 times, bought the taxpayers like $20 billion. This is how the government operated in the 1800s, which Trump always said in the 1800s, in the 1890s, they had so much money they didn't know what to spend. He's absolutely right. And what we're doing is every single one of us, unless you're 114 years old, has lived under the Fed system. the income tax system, which is completely different than what we had for our first 120 years. And I'm going to show you now the difference and what Trump's trying to get us to. So, going back from the George Washington's first year in office, the first year of the Constitution, to 1913, we had massive expansion in output and solid per capita gains. U.S. went from modest post-colonial economy to largest in the world by total GDP. Per capita and income growth year over year was 1 to 1.5%. That means in 1913, you were making roughly 120% more than what they were making, or 130% more than what they were making in 1789. Cumulative real per capita output rose by a factor of 3 to 4 times. Now, there's all these reasons for it, but this is what I wanted to show you guys. Price levels and inflation. The idea of booming economy is inflationary is a lie. And I'm going to show it to you right here. Long-term stability from 1789 to 1913 had a mild deflationary bias during high productive periods. Yeah, the Trump economy is going to be deflationary. And that's where we're headed as we weaken the Fed and Trump puts in policies that are much more original American economy. He's trying to get rid of the income tax by phasing out as much as possible. And it's going to take time because the Senate has to do it. But he can keep pushing, which he's been doing. Prices had volatile short terms during wars, but no sustained upward trend like the 20th century. By 1913, overall price level similar or modestly lower than 1800. 113 years and prices did not rise. We've been taught to expect 2 to 3% inflation every year. Because when an economy is growing, inflation grows. No, that's the Keynesian model, the socialist model of economics that was forced upon us by Woodrow Wilson and has only grown from there, that Trump is reversing right now. There are a couple of major spikes, but the major deflationary area after the Civil War, driven by productivity gains outpacing money supply under a gold standard. That, my friends, is a real economy, an American economy. Why? Well, let's look. Goods, because of manufacturing innovation, strongly deflationary. Tech progress, mass production, scale economies, failing transport costs made textiles, clothing, steel, machinery, and many farm products much cheaper over time. Ag prices volatile but trended down in real terms in the late 19th century. Services, generally less deflationary with goods, but still mostly deflationary. Transportation services improved, often became cheaper. Many personal and professional services had stickier prices. But sticky isn't growth, it's not inflation, it's just staying the same. This is before the federal government had a budget. Energy. Costs declined significantly, enabling industrialization. By the way, costs are about to go way down again. We're starting to rebuild nuclear energy. We just had our first one hit criticality. Trump is investing in 13 coal plants across the nation to upgrade them, make them more productive. He is investing in oil. We are now the largest exporter in oil by double the next two nations. We largest exporter of natural gas. Wait till we get more refineries here, folks. Oil will plummet. That is the trend of a growing economy. That's what Trump is putting into place. Takes time, but this is what's going to happen. Coal nominal prices fell notably pre-Civil War. Real prices were manageable or lower with scale. Oil from 1859, when it started being used more, initially volatile or expensive, but prices fell sharply with discoveries and refining, about to get there again. Now, the good news is assets, even in this deflationary environment, assets still would rise, like land. That's a good thing because that's an investment. Given overall price stability, deflation, real farmland values increased meaningfully. Urban shelter and housing, though, was moderately up. Rents took a large share of working class income, but real costs did not explode. 120 years from 1890 to 1930, Home ownership rates were stable, 46 to 48%, but rents did not explode. Isn't that interesting? Now, household wealth rose substantially in real terms from 1789 to 1913, tracking GDP, capita growth, and capital accumulation. Composition, wealth was overwhelmingly held in real assets, similar to now, except stocks are a big part of it now. So the point in all this, guys, is that we had the most booming, fast-growing, best economy for people in world history from 1789 to 1913. We had a completely different system. The government did not have an income tax to pull money from. They got money from sales tax and from tariffs. Trump is trying to get us back to that. It's going to take time. It's going to take time. If you think he could turn this around in a year, you're crazy. And everybody blaming Trump for the economy right now has zero idea what they're talking about. Policies take time. He's digging us out of a system designed to ultimately lead to communism or socialism, because this system that once upon a time, the old system built the greatest middle class in world history. In fact, the only great middle class in world history, has now created a system to slowly erode all of our wealth so that it all went to the top and everybody below it started bleeding out. And that is the system we're currently in, which is exactly the communist system. It just takes time because they are undoing what was already done, which was the greatest system in history. That system is what Trump is rebuilding. And that's why, folks, we are going to have an amazing economy in just a few years. It takes time. But I'm telling you, by this time next year, our economy will be on the up and up in a major way. I actually think it's going to start by the end of the summer. We're going to start seeing big differences. By the end of this year, a lot of acceleration. By next year, I think we'll be fully in the momentum. But again, it takes time. So everybody criticizing Trump on his economics have zero idea what they're talking about. What they're asking for, because the only way to get immediate help from the federal government to help you with your groceries, the only way for it to be immediate is for you to get a stimulus check. That's it. Or for the government to stimulate it in some other way by paying it, which means money printing, which means inflation down the road. That's the only way. So everybody crying about Trump's policies, deep down, what you're really saying is, give it to me, daddy, the same way you did before. Make my life worse so I can get a temporary fix. And I understand it. Most people do not understand economics. Most people do not understand how policy affects a larger economy. I get it. Public school sucks. And nobody who goes through public school learns any of this. They're taught a bunch of retarded stuff. Memorize your dates. Yeah, because that's going to help you in life. But the fact is, everything Trump's doing is rebuilding this system right here, which was the greatest system ever. And it takes time. Reagan took 18 months before there started being results. His approval rating was 35%. In 1983, his approval was 35%. In 1984, he won a 49-state landslide. It turned around real quick once it clicked. What Trump has done is Reagan on steroids. So just imagine what's going to happen once it turns around. Is he in a worse place? Yeah, a little bit. But Reagan came into an oil crisis. Reagan came into massive inflation. And he turned it around with doing less than Trump's done. So again, I don't want to hear about how Trump sucks on the economy. No, Trump is doing what Reagan did, except better. And we're going to see better results here pretty quickly. The facts, the proof, you have to go backwards a little bit to find it, but it's there. You can, if you understand the 1800s, how America was founded, how our economy originally worked, you can understand what Trump's doing. And then you can understand how it's going to be much, much better going forward.